Hello and welcome to Gravity Driven Adventures. This is going to be the first video I'll be putting on my YouTube channel, and hopefully there's going to be many more to follow. In this video I'm going to be starting on my new project in NoLimits 2. It's going to be a terrain park, and I'm going to be talking about a couple of the motivations and inspirations that I have for this park, and yeah, sort of the ideas that I'm still working on that I haven't realized yet, but things I'm planning for this park to have at some stage. But before we're going to get into the park in detail, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the things that the things that I've planned for this YouTube channel. So, as many of you are too, I am a roller coaster enthusiast and as well as an engineer. I've studied engineering in Germany, and yeah, I've always had an interest in roller coasters, and I've always loved more the simulating kind of experience of a roller coaster and having a very, very accurate representation of what a roller coaster is. But at the same time, I also like what theme parks do, the decoration and the worlds that they create within amusement parks, the atmospheres, and that's really what I'm trying to be doing with this park here too. As you will see in this terrain park, this is going to be somewhat of a mixture of Alton Towers in the UK in England and Liseberg in Sweden. Both parks I have been to and I really like a lot. The location of both of these parks are just absolutely amazing, and yeah, they really make for a special atmosphere, a special kind of feel when you're there on your visit. As for what I have planned for this YouTube channel, it is mostly going to be NoLimits 2, as well as a couple of other games, and my plan is to do videos such as these ones. I'm going to record myself building a new project, and I'm going to comment on what I'm doing, and maybe it even helps people to get started in the program. I'm also seeing myself doing tutorials if there's going to be a demand for it. But for the moment, I'm just going to start on projects that I'm currently working on and that I'd like to share with you. Other than that, I'm also planning to release videos of other games that I like playing, such as Parkitect as well as Planet Coaster. But for the most part, I'm going to be focusing on NoLimits 2. In the future, once I get to it again, I'd also like to release the enthusiast kind of content, which is going to be mostly consisting of rumors and speculations of certain amusement parks, especially European ones, because most of the amusement park people that make videos on amusement parks, most of them are actually from North America, and they mostly cover content from North America and not really from Europe. So that's something I'd like to focus on, because I live here in Europe, and it's just not content that I see a lot being put out on YouTube. And the last thing that I was going to mention is that one of the things I also have planned for this channel are tutorials for NoLimits 2, as well as SketchUp and perhaps Blender and Cinema 4D, depending on which software I'm going to use to create the decoration and other kind of set pieces in NoLimits 2. I'd also really like, I've never actually done it, but I'd really like to design my own trains. The first project, or the first video here, I'm going to be working on a Schwarzkopf coaster, and the inspiration for it is obviously Lisebergbahnen in Liseberg, and they have very special trains that are not available in NoLimits 2, and I'd like to get something that looks similar to that, but that is going to be a project for later on, as I'm firstly going to finish up the roller coaster and everything that's going to be surrounding it. So while I've been talking, quite a lot has happened already in the video, and I'd like to give a little bit of information about that. so that you know the context of this episode and this video. So as I've said, this park is heavily inspired by Alton Towers and Liseberg, and for that the right kind of terrain has to be created in NoLimits. And from there, usually it helps me when I have a little bit of terrain, it helps me to be a lot more creative when it comes to creating a layout of the roller coaster. And that's one of the things I was really looking forward to in this project. I have not used NoLimits 2 in a long while, or at least I haven't really finished a project in a long time, and this way it just gave me a lot more motivation again to start on a fun project. The terrain is also heavily inspired by the area that I currently live in Germany, which is the the Upper Rhine Valley area, which is the area that consists of basically more castles than houses. No, that's not quite true, but they are along the Rhine. You basically, when you drive along the Rhine River, every 5 minutes you pass another castle. It's swamped with castles here, and this is probably also going to happen in another video later on with the 3D model. Once I start with this 3D modeling, that there's going to be, well, a castle or a fortress, some kind of building that's going to be on top of the hill, and the amusement park, that's sort of the story that I have in my head behind it, is going to serve as sort of a tourist attraction, a pull to get people towards the castle. That's sort of the idea. I hope that I can really incorporate that in this amusement park, and but yeah, you will be seeing that in a future episode. As you see me here working on the layout of this Schwarzkopf coaster, I went for a little bit of a different approach other than the Liseberg Bahnen at Liseberg. The first drop of this ride is heavily inspired not by Liseberg Bahnen, but more by the traditional fair coasters that Schwarzkopf have manufactured. So it's a very twisty drop, quite a, well, for back then, quite a steep drop, and yeah, the rest of the layout is mostly going to consist of a mixture of airtime hills, but mostly really twists and turns. I've tried to only incorporate one mid-course brake run, but you'll see that towards the end, once the layout is going to get finished. And of course, I tried to work with the terrain as much as I could. One thing that I always run into in terms of problems is I like to place the trees before I place the rod. I don't know why, but I just prefer that. But whenever you put a piece of track somewhere where there's a tree, it automatically basically adjusts for that, so it tries to be above the tree. So that's one thing that I always then have to fix later on, which is a bit annoying. But I've started this layout with a little bit of a pre-section. I'm not sure whether I'm going to theme that to anything or whether there's just going to be decoration. And then into quite a large lift. So actually, I had underestimated how tall I've made these mountains, but I think it worked out pretty well. And we've got a little bit of a pre-drop section that goes through the forest of just one helix, and then yeah, you get into the traditional, typical Schwarzkopf drop, and then into a big airtime hill, which from the viewer that is waiting in the queue or just on the main path is going to look very scenic, and yeah, it's going to be the viewpoint or the main attraction for people to look at from the outside. So yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. I'm finishing the ride or the layout off with the mid-course brake run, and I'm going to add the transfer track to the station. That's something I usually always forget until the very last moment, and then usually it's too late. So here I thought of it a little bit earlier, which is great. And yeah, in the next episode you'll be seeing me finishing the layout and sort of adjusting a lot of things. And in the third episode I think I'm going to start with the supporting of the roller coaster. So if there's anything specific that you'd like to see in these videos, or anything that you'd like me to talk or comment about, just mention it in the comments, and I will try to address those things. That's it for the first episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you back on Gravity Driven Adventures soon.